Hello, everyone. I'm Austin Palmer. I'm the designer of Concrete Jungle, and today I'm here with a rules and playthrough video. This is an entry to the Solitaire 2022 print and play contest, and in it you are a free runner who is trying to make their way across the city rooftops. If you can make your way through this entire deck of map cards before getting too stressed, you win. If you get too stressed before you can do so, then you will lose. Here are all the components. You have 5 cubes for tracking various values. You'll track your speed and momentum, which will be on your player card here. You will use it to track free fall whenever you have to resolve that, and that's tracked here on your player card. And then you have 3 for tracking your sort of current position and then previous positions for various effects in the game. And then the bulk of the game is in this deck of map/action cards. They're double-sided. One side will be the map, and one side will be the action. We'll go over the map first. Each map card is composed of a 5x7 grid of points, and these points are going to be what you actually move along to go from left to right on the map. There are 2 types of points: solid points and mid-air points. Solid points are essentially what you can actually stand on, run on, move on, and then mid-air points are spots you can move through but not really stand on. There's 2 types of solid points. You can see here there's solid circles here. That is called a run point. This is going to be most of the solid points in the game. There are also these points called swing points, represented by a star. You can think of these as kind of flag poles, other things that you might sort of swing from, or might see like a rope connected that you can zip line down, something like that. There are also 2 different types of mid-air points. You have empty points, which is represented by this dashed circle here, that represents sort of like the empty space. You can think of that as like the air above the buildings most of the time. And then these small dots here are backdrop points. You can think of this as the side of the building as you're running alongside it. Some points will also have something called basic movement arrows coming away from them. You can see here there's an arrow moving right. Up here there's an arrow moving up. And these sort of represent the natural flow of movement that you can move along. Some actions, not all, will tell you to make basic moves. We'll get into that later, but it essentially restricts you to moving along these arrows. There are also 4 different kinds of basic movement arrows, the effects of which we'll go over later, but for now I'll say that there are normal arrows, these basic arrows here. There are slow arrows, sort of these thick arrows here. There are Let me find them. There are fast arrows, sort of these double arrows here. Usually you'll see these on like a downward slope. And then there are tight arrows, represented by this kind of stopped line next to the arrow. Like I said, they'll have different effects depending on if you basic move along them, but we'll get into that later. Each map card also has something called an anchor. They have an entrance anchor and an exit anchor. These don't do much in the game itself, but they're used to align the cards when you're creating the map. You can see this sort of line up to each other, and that sort of creates the skyline that you'll be running across. So that's it for the map cards. As for the action cards, each action card has 3 attributes. You have the title, that's just the name of the action. You have the type here. Actions can either be primary, secondary, or some can be both. See, this is primary and secondary. And then you have the actual action text, which is how you resolve it. And again, we'll go into that later on when I'm doing the actual gameplay. So with that sort of explained, let's get to setup. So to start, you're just going to shuffle this deck of cards. Ordinarily, you'd shuffle these, draw 8. You'd keep 4, and you'd shuffle the rest back into the deck, and that would be your starting hand of cards. However, for your first game, and for this video, we are going to just pick the 4 starting cards. So those 4 cards are Run, Zipline, Jump, and Cat Pass. So you'll take these 4, and those will be your starting hand, and then you'll shuffle the rest of the cards to make the deck. So once that's shuffled, you're going to create your starting map. And you're going to do that by dealing out 4 cards in a row, aligning those anchors I talked about to each other. Like this one's here, so we'll put that here, out to the left, put it here. And then this, the anchor's here, so we'll align it with the anchor in the middle there. And in this case they're, aligned card to card, but that will not always be the case, although it is happening every time here. Okay, they don't always line up like this. We'll see it sort of, it goes up and down as you move along the map. So this is our starting 4-card map. We'll put the rest here to form the deck. And we'll put the player card here. So to set up the player card, you put the momentum cube on this double bordered starting space. You put your free fall cube just sort of near that graph for when you need it. And then with the remaining 3, you're going to choose any solid point in the leftmost 2 columns of the left card. So in this case, we could choose this, and that's where we're going to place our active cube. Your active cube is going to represent your current position. The inactive cube is going to sort of represent your most recent position, and then you're going to have a 3rd start cube representing your position at the start of the turn. So let's say here is where I'll put my active cube. At the start of the game, you'll just put your inactive cube sort of off to the side next to the anchor here. And then you'll put your start cube above the map in the same column as your active cube. So this is how our cubes will be set up. And then you're going to create space for 3 areas. A future pile, we're going to put that right here. This is basically as you move from left to right, old cards will get shunted off to this future pile and new cards will come into the right. You'll have your line here. That's basically where you're going to play cards and then pick up once you've played them all. And then off to the side, off camera, will be our stress pile. If you have to take stress, you place cards in your stress pile. And if you have 5 or more cards at any given time, you immediately lose the game. So now we're ready to start. So on every turn, you're going to take exactly 1 primary action and as many secondary actions as you like. Most of the time, these actions come from your cards. There is 1 primary action you can take without actually playing a card, but we'll get to that later. But most of the time, like I said, you will be playing these cards. To play a card, you simply put it into your line. You sort of go from left to right here, and you resolve what it says 1 sentence at a time. So, sorry, mess this up. So I will play this primary action here, run, and it says make this is your speed, so make speed +1 basic moves to solid points. So I'll play that here. Each sentence is considered its own separate movement. After every movement, you're going to resolve free fall if necessary, and also before or after resolving any movement, that's when you can play your secondary actions. So you can't do it in the middle of a movement. You can only do it before you resolve a movement or after you resolve a movement. So normally, like I said, a single sentence is 1 movement. The exception is with this basic move. And that's where we're going to get into these arrows here. So let me clear this off for a second, and we'll show this in bigger. So when you make a basic move, you can move 1 space following these basic arrows here. So I believe I started here. That means the only thing I could do if I made a basic move is go from here to here, and that would be 1 basic move. And each basic move is itself an individual movement. If we were here, for instance, we could either move up to here, that's 1 basic move, or we can move from here to here, that's 1 basic move. And if we ended here, we'd then have to resolve free fall. I'll get into free fall in a couple turns, but essentially is how you kind of fall to the ground and then keep moving. If you make basic moves on your turn, you will also have to resolve the arrow effects if you move along any of those arrows. And that's where those come in. So a slow arrow, you have to reduce your momentum by 1. Your momentum's tracked on this card, and you would increase your momentum by sliding this along here. You decrease it by sliding it down along here. So slow reduces your momentum by 1 if you move along it. A fast arrow, shown here, increases your momentum by 1. Think of that usually will be, your uphills are your slow arrows and your downhills are your fast arrows. And then there are tight arrows here, to the top of the deck. Tight arrows reduce your speed by 1. So your speed value is the next showing number on the momentum track. So to start the game, your speed is 2. If you were told to increase your speed by 1 for any reason, you would increase your momentum until it changes by 1. So we start at speed 2. If we were told to increase our speed 1, we would simply move until it changes to, in this case, 3. Similarly, if by a tight arrow you had to decrease your speed 1, right now we're at 3, we would decrease until our speed changes by 1. So we'd move 1 down. That changes our speed from 3 to 2, so we'd stop there. If at any time you can't move momentum in one direction, like if you have to increase it but you're already here, or if you have to decrease it but you're already down here, you will stress a card. We'll get into stress later on in the video. And it's also important to note that these basic arrow effects can only happen once per turn. So if you, say, made a basic movement from here to here and then from here to here, you wouldn't decrease momentum twice, you would just do it once. But that's not where we're at. We are here. Here's our start cube, and this is where an active cube was. And we're going to make, in this case, speed plus 1 basic moves to solid points. So not all basic arrows lead directly to solid points. Here's a good example. It leads to an empty point, or a mid-air point rather. But in this case, we have to make basic moves to solid points only. So we start here, and so we'll make a basic move. Like I said, we could only move to the right one. When you resolve a movement, you take the inactive cube and you move it to your new position. Think of it kind of like cribbage if you've played that, where you take the back cube and you move it to the front. It doesn't matter as much for this because we don't have to resolve freefall, but the reason you go from inactive to active and sort of jump frog or leapfrog your cubes like that is because when you do resolve freefall, it's important to know where your last position was. So this says make 3 basic moves to solid points. So that was 1, that was 2, and that's 3. So we've made our 3 basic moves to solid points. If you ever couldn't fully resolve a movement, say if you need to make a basic move to a solid point, but the only move would be to a mid-air point. Like in this case, if we were supposed to make another basic move to a solid point, in this case we couldn't, you must immediately end the action. You don't do anything else, and you immediately jump to the end of the turn, and you must stress cards equal to your speed. So to stress a card, you will take either cards from your hand or from your line, and you'll place them into your stress pile. So if you had, in this case, if we had to stress cards, it would be 2, and we'd take 2 cards either from our hand or our line, we'd place them into our stress pile, and then we'd replace them into the line with the top cards of the deck. So if we had to stress 2 cards, we'd place 2 in the stress pile, and then immediately add 2 to the line like this. We don't have to stress, luckily, because we ended our movement there. So we did our 3 basic moves. The action's over. I don't want to do any secondary actions. We'll get to that later. Actually, let's do a secondary action. So after each movement resolution, you can do a secondary action if you like. In this case, the only secondary action we have is a cat pass, which says make 1 basic move right or down right to a point without a solid point above it. So we've just resolved a basic move. That's how we got here. And if we wanted to, we could then make 1 basic move right to a point without a solid point above it. That's this, right? A basic move to here. There's no solid point above it. So we'll play this as a secondary action. We'll make 1 basic move here. And that's the secondary action. Now, here is where we finally get into freefall, because we made a movement and we've ended on a mid-air point. So what do? Obviously, you can't just stay frozen in mid-air. So how do we resolve sort of landing? And that's where this freefall chart comes in. So first, you're going to calculate the distance between your inactive and active cube. In this case, it's just 1. Our active cube's here and active cube's here. The difference is 1. So you take your freefall cube and place it on that number on the chart. If it's ever more than 3, you would just place it on 3, but in this case it's 1. So here. And then you're going to follow these steps, these 3 steps in order until you finally reach a solid point. You're going to make a movement to the right, that many spaces. This is 1. So we'd move 1 right. You'd move down 1 point, and then you would shift the cube to the left if possible. And you would just keep doing that, moving right, moving down, shifting this cube to the left until you finally reach a solid point. And these movements written down are considered individual movements in and of themselves. So for instance, if you needed to move down 2 here, but couldn't, say if you moved 1 and then hit a solid point, that would count as not being able to fully resolve. So you would have to stress cards equal to your speed as you normally would. However, we don't have to do that because our first movement is moving 1 to the right. We move 1 to the right. Whether you use the active or inactive cubes here actually doesn't matter, because in free fall you don't trigger a new free fall, you just resolve it until you hit the ground. So we'll move this here 1 to the right, and we immediately hit a solid point, so we stop moving. We don't have to do any further down. We don't have to take stress because we were able to fully complete that. So we just moved 1 to the right to resolve free fall, and then we're done. So we finished resolving that movement. Secondary action's done, primary action's done. No more secondary actions I want to take. So we hit the end of the turn. So for the end of the turn, you're going to follow a few steps. First, you need to adjust your momentum. You do that by checking where your active cube is and look again at the horizontal distance between the active cube and your start cube here. That's where this comes in. So in this case, we started here, and the distance is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Difference of 5, and you compare that to your current speed. In this case, our current speed is 2. If the difference is higher than your speed, you increase momentum by 1. If it's lower than your speed, you decrease your momentum by 1. So in this case, it was higher, so we increased it by 1. Note that it doesn't change our speed yet, because we have to actually increase momentum multiple times to increase our speed. But we have a higher difference than our current speed, so we'll move it up by 1, and that's our new momentum. We then move the start cube to above our active cube here, basically resetting it for the next turn. If we were at 1 speed, basically if the cube was down here, we would have to stress a cube. Basically you're going a little too slow and you're getting stressed, so we'd have to stress a single card. Luckily we're up here, so we don't have to worry about that. And then we do sort of the upkeep with the map. So first, if you've passed over any cards, if any cards are to the left of your start cube, you move them over to the future pile. You can put the inactive cube kind of where you normally might, here just for now. And then you shift the map and replace it with a card from the deck. So we'll shift these cards to the left. Realign everything. And then we add this card here following the same anchor. So the anchors match, and see that the anchors match down here, but the cards are not aligned. So you actually have some adjustment here of the height. So once you're down to 4 cards, then you finish adjusting the map. And then you check if your hand is empty. So in this case, we still have 2 cards in our hand. So we won't get into what happens when your hand is empty, but that will happen next turn or the turn after. But that's the end of turn. You increase or decrease momentum, move the start cube to where your active cube is, adjust the map if you need to, take stress if you are too low on the momentum track, and then reset your line if you don't have any cards in hand. So now we're on a new turn and we can take a primary action. So let's look at our cards. This zip line says you may move 1 in any direction to a swing point. Move from a swing point to any swing point lower and further to the right on the next card. You may move 1 in any direction. So if we played that, we could move to this swing point. That's a star here. We would have to move to any other swing point lower and to the right on the next card. However, there aren't any swing points, the stars, lower and further to the right on this card. So we actually couldn't fully resolve this card. We'd have to take stress, and that's bad. So we're just going to do this. Jump. So jump says move equal to your speed, right or up, to empty points. Then move 1 right or up. You must move up at least once and cannot move more points up than right. So basically, you can't do a higher jump than you are long. So let's play that. So our current speed is 2. So we can move 2 right or up to empty points and then move 1 to basically any point. So let's see, we have to move up at least 1. So that's 1 of our points. And then our second will be here. That satisfies our movement to empty points. And then we move right 1 more here. So that's all our movement for that action. And we resolved that entire movement. So now if we are in midair, which we are, we have to resolve free fall again. Oops, sorry, I did a thing wrong. I moved the active cube. You should be moving the inactive cube, moving it 1 up to the right here. So now to resolve free fall, we do what we did before. We check the free fall, we check the distance. Distance is 2 points, so 1, 2. So we put our cube on the 2 space. Let's zoom in on this to get a sense of. So we're on the 2 space to start, which means we're going to start by moving right 2, down 1. Let's replace this here, put this here. So we're going to move right 2. That's a movement. We haven't hit any solid ground, so we don't stop. Down 1. Okay, still haven't stopped. So then we'd move this cube 1 to the left. And then we do that again. Right 1 this time because we're in a new column. Down 1 again. And this time we've hit the ground. So we stop resolving free fall. We were able to fully resolve that downward movement so we don't take any stress, but we do stop resolving free fall. So that is the entire end of the movement. We did the jump, up 1, right 2. We resolved free fall down to here. That's the end of the action. I could take secondary actions if I had any, but I don't. I only have this primary zipline action, so that's all I can do. So now we go to the end of the turn again. So we check the distance between our active cube and start cube. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. Check our speed. Once again, it's 2, so we increase our momentum by 1. Now, notice our speed's higher. It might be hard to see because of the shade, but our speed is now 3. So anything that uses this speed icon will be a value of 3 rather than 2. Higher speed is good because it lets you move across the map faster, but it's bad because it can make things less controllable. Note that for most cases, you have to exactly move that many spaces. So if you aren't planning things correctly, you can get into situations where you have to stress cards. But we don't have to worry about that right now. We increased our momentum, adjusted our start cube to be above our active cube. This card here is to the left of our start cube, so we'll put it in our future pile and shift the map over to accommodate the next card. Here it is. We would stress a card if we were at speed 1. We're not. And then if our hand is empty, we would reset our line, but alas, we are not. So now we're on to the next turn. And with the zip line, we've seen it before. Yeah, you can move 1 to a swing point, move from a swing point to a lower one on the next card, and move 1. We actually could do that here. See, this point here is a swing point, so we could move here, then move down to this swing point, which is lower and further to the right and on the next card. And then we could move 1 in any direction. So that we could do that. That'd probably be the optimal play. But I'm going to show off the other primary action you can take. So let's say for some reason we couldn't do this. There are no swing points on this card, or they're all high or something like that. Then what you can do at any point as your primary action is stress a card to make one basic move anywhere. And if for some reason you're on a point that doesn't allow basic movements, you can just move 1 in any direction. So here, we would stress this card, put it in our stress pile. And remember, when you stress a card, you immediately take the top card of the deck and add it to your line. So the number of cards in your hand will not change, or the number of cards you have won't change. You'll stress 1 here, but you replace it into your line. So that stays the same. And then you get to take 1 basic move. So in this case, the only basic move we can do is right. So 1 basic move here. Like I said, probably not optimal. It's pretty slow and it stresses a card, but just to show off the other primary action you can do. We could take secondary actions, but I don't have any in my hand. So we're going to hit the end of the turn. And once again, I've forgotten to use the inactive cube. So we do the inactive cube here just in case. But it doesn't matter because we don't have to resolve free fall. We ended our movement on a solid point, so we don't have to worry about that. But we will do end of turn. We check the distance between our active and start cube. In this case, it's 1, and that is less than our speed of 3. So we decrease momentum by 1, which decreases our speed back to 2. We never even got to use that 3 speed. We move the start cube up to the active cube. We would get rid of any cards that are to the left of the start cube, but there aren't any, so we don't adjust the map at all. If our speed was 1, we would stress a card. We'd have to stress from here because we don't have any in hand. but luckily our speed's still 2, so we're okay there. And then finally, we actually reset our line. So to reset your line, you do a few things. First, you take all the cards that are in the future pile, and you look at the actions. You're going to choose one of these actions, add it to your line, and then place all the rest at the bottom of the deck, action side face up, without changing the order that you pick them up in. In this case, there's 2, so it doesn't matter. But we're going to pick one of these, add it to our line, and we're going to put the other at the bottom of the deck face up. So wall climb. Move 1 upright, that's a diagonal upright direction, to a solid point. You may, okay, so this is interesting. So may is optional and says basically you don't have to do the rest of the sentence, but you can choose to if you want. And then up to, if there wasn't this may here, up to would mean you have to do at least 1, but you can do any number from 1 up to that speed value. So in our case of speed 2, we would do up 1 or 2. This may means we can do 0, but if this sentence just said make up to that many basic moves, you couldn't choose 0. You can only choose to do nothing if it says you may do something. So it says move 1 upright to a solid point. You may make up to speed basic moves up or upright to solid points, and then make 1 basic move. So the idea of this is, you jump here to the right to something, you climb up, and then you keep moving. Doesn't seem very useful here. We don't really have any walls we're going to have to climb. Maybe here, but maybe here. That might be useful. And then tightrope. Or no, sorry, this is launch, my bad. You may move 1 any direction to a swing point. Move from a swing point, speed up or right. So moving to a swing point, and then it's kind of like the jump, only without the restriction of moving to empty midair points only. Launch seems like it'll be easier to pull off, so let's put that in our line. Wall climb will just go face up to the bottom of the deck. So the reason you put them face up is once we hit the end of this, and we have to add a card to the line, but it's all we have is face up cards, that's how you win. Basically making it through all these map cards before you hit 5 or more stress. Right now we have just 1 stress in our stress pile, so we're doing pretty good, but I guess don't get cocky. So once we've added a card to our line, we're simply going to pick up every card back up into our hand. This is how you refresh your hand. This is the only way to refresh your hand. You have to play or stress all the cards in your hand before you can pick them back up and get new cards. So now we have 5. We have our run, cat pass, jump, and tightrope from earlier. Or sorry, this tightrope came from stress, right? We had a zip line, but we stressed that and got a tightrope in return. So stressing cards can be useful if you have kind of useless cards, cards that aren't going to be helpful for the future of the map. You can get rid of them, replace them with a new one, but it's risky because that's how you lose. So now our cards are run, cat pass, jump, tightrope, and launch. Now we're ready to start the next turn. So, all right, let's do this. This is, I think this is a bad move, but it might show off some of the other rules of the game. So, actually no, let's show off a basic movement. So let's play this run as our primary action again. Make speed +1 basic moves to solid points. So we'll play that. Our speed is 2. So we're making 3 basic moves to solid points. So our first basic move, again, has to be to the right because that's the only option we have. But if you notice, let me take these off for the moment. This is a slow movement arrow. So we have to make that basic move. So we'll go from here to here using our inactive cube, but that will reduce our momentum by 1. If this did change our speed, it doesn't. But if it did, it wouldn't affect the number of moves we make. This icon refers to your speed at the beginning of the turn, not the end of the turn, or not during the turn. So that's 1 basic move. We have 2 left. We'll do another basic move here. There are no arrow effects, so you don't have to worry about them. And then the only basic move we can make is to a solid point. So this is midair, so it wouldn't count. So we'd have to do this. So 1, 2, 3. We've resolved all our basic ones. Do we want to do a secondary action? We have this cat pass again. Make 1 basic move right or down right to a point without a solid point above it. Both of these would apply, so we could make either of these basic moves. And yeah, let's do it. We'll do the secondary action, and we'll move to the right. So we'll move one to the right here, sort of leapfrogging over our active. And because we end in a midair point, we resolve free fall again. So the difference between active and active is 1, so we put our cube on the 1 spot, and then we resolve free fall. So it's going to be 1 right, 1 down, shift the cube over, and then do it again. So 1 right and 2 down. So here's where things get dicey. So we want to move 2 down, but we immediately stop when we hit a solid point. But we've only moved 1. So that's what incomplete resolution means. You want to do something, but you can't fully resolve it. So in this case, we'd have to take stress equal to our speed. In this case, our speed is 2, so we have to stress 2 cards. Those cards can come either from our hand or from our line. Let's stress this tightrope. You do them simultaneously. So you stress cards and then replace them. You don't get to replenish one at a time. So we stress the tightrope. We have to stress one more. Let's stress this launch because it's not going to come in handy. All right, so we stress 2 cards. So we replace 2 from the top of the deck. All right, so now we have 3 cards on our stress pile. That's not great because 2 more and we lose, but hopefully that's okay. So we did our stress, we resolved that movement, and now we're down here. No more secondary actions, all we have is this primary one. So now we go to the end of the turn. So first, we resolve momentum. Our active cubes here, our start cubes here. Difference is much bigger than 2, so we increase momentum by 1. We move the start cube over here. We adjust the map, so this card is to the left of the start cube. We'll bring it over here and shift all the map cards over to adjust. Put that here. We would stress a card if our speed is 1, but it's not, our speed's 2. And our hand is not yet empty, so we cannot reset our line yet. But this turn, we will empty our hand, so we have only 1 possible card left. We could stress it to make 1 basic move, but that's bad because it would take us very close to losing. So we'll take this action, jump. We've seen this before. Move equal to your speed, right or up to empty points, then move 1 right or up. With this restriction, you have to move up once and have to move right more than up. So we'll do that. So we have to move up right twice and then up or right once. So 1, 2. And then we can't move up because that would mean we go more up than right. So we go here. So we resolve that movement, up and right 1. Or I've been making this mistake all video. You do use your inactive cube. Up 1, right 2, you end here. Ordinarily, you'd resolve free fall, but we're on a solid point. We don't have to worry about free fall here. So instead, we could do any secondary actions, but we don't have any. So we'll jump to the end of turn. First, we compare the start versus the active cube. The difference is 2, and our speed is 2. So our momentum does not change. But we do move our start cube up to here. We have a card here that we've passed over. So just put this cube here. Oops. Put this in the future pile. And then slide these over. Let's back around. Replace it with this. We check our speed to see if we stress a card, but we don't. And now that our hand's empty, we reset our line. So we pick up this future pile, and we choose 1 to add to our line. We have a running jump, increase momentum by 1. That would just slide us along the momentum track. Make up 2, so this would be at least 1, but up to your speed. Make up 2, so your speed amount of basic moves to solid points, and then move 1 upright, and this could be to any point. That's useful. Break. Play only if your speed is at least 2. Make 1 basic move to a solid point, ignoring all basic movement arrows. Place your momentum cube on the starting position. So if we were going very fast and we wanted to slow down, we could use this to slow down to our starting speed of 2, and we could play it as a secondary action so we wouldn't have to worry about going too slowly. Is that going to be worth it right now? No, I'm going to keep this running jump. So this running jump will be added to our line, and this will go to the bottom of the deck, face up. So go here. All right, and then we pick up all of the cards, and we're ready for the next turn. So now we have 6. And there's only 2 cards. You'll notice there's only 2 cards left in the map deck. The rest are all actions. So we're close. We need to make sure not to take on any stress. So let's see what's going on here. So we're here. That's our current active cube. So what do we want to do? Running jump. No, don't want to do that. Do we want to do that? We could jump and make it to here, but I don't think we'd have much to do. Aside from that, a scouting run, this is new. Move up to speed +2 basic moves to solid points, reduce speed by 2. So this gives you a lot of movement, but then it reduces your speed pretty drastically. Don't know if we want to do that because our speed's already at 2. That would cause a good amount of stress. Running jump, we saw that. Jump, roll. Okay, here it is. Primary and secondary is new. Make 1 basic move upright, right, or downright. Ignore any slow or tight movement arrows. So that might be good if we get down to here. We could sort of roll under. Not have to worry about that. Cat pass again. I don't really know what we want to do here. Let's do a run. No, let's just do a run here. All right. So we've seen this a lot. Make speed +1 basic moves to solid points. So that will be 3. Because our speed's 2, 2 + 1 is 3. So the only thing we can go up here is up, right, and then we'll figure out what to do here. So our inactive cube's here. So we'll move up 1. That's 1 basic move. Follow this arrow. That's 2 basic moves. Then here we actually have a decision to make. We could go down, take this down arrow here, but you might not be able to see, but that's a speed arrow. So that would increase our momentum by 1, not necessarily a bad thing. Or we could move to the right, but we actually can't move to the right because it's not solid. So we have to move down here, and that increases our momentum by 1. So that's our turn. Do we want to do a secondary action? We could roll. We could cat pass. Let's cat pass. Okay. Make 1 basic move right or downright to a point without a solid point above it. So we will go here. No solid point above this. We make 1 basic move to the right. And because this is midair, we resolve free fall. So cube starts at 1, move right 1, down 1. That ends free fall immediately, but we don't have to stress any cards. And that'll put us here. So now we jump. Do we want this other secondary action? So we could do another one. We've already resolved the movement, so we could resolve another movement. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so roll says make 1 basic move, upright, right, or downright, ignore any slow or tight movement arrows. So let's play that. Make a basic move here. Don't resolve any free fall, but we do get a little extra movement out of that. So now we don't have any more secondary actions to play. So we will do the end of turn. So we'll check the distance between our active and start cube. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's more than our speed, so we'll increase momentum by 1. Move the start cube here. Move this card over to the feature pile and slide to accommodate. Ooh, heading downwards. Let's move this back over here to where we were. All right, check speed. Speed is at 3. We don't have to stress a card. And our hand is not empty, so we don't have to reset our line. So we're on to the next turn. What do we want to do here? Okay, let's do this scouting run. This might be a good time for it. Move up 2, speed plus 2 basic moves to solid points only, reduce speed by 2. Okay. So let's play this. So that means we can make up to 5, because our speed is currently actually 3. We make up to 5, has to be to solid points, and then reduce speed by 2. So our first basic move has to be here, and our second has to be here. So we have 3 more basic moves. We could go to the right, but that's a tight arrow. And that means we'd have to decrease our speed by 1. We already have to decrease it by 2 after we resolve this movement. So we probably don't want to reduce it further because that'll lead to stress. So let's go up instead. So we've already done 2. We have 3 left. So that's 3, 4, 5. All right, so that'll end all our basic moves. Didn't have to resolve any arrow effects. No secondary actions, so we can't bother with that. We resolve this movement, but then we have to do the next sentence, which is reduce speed by 2. So we have to reduce it until we get to a difference of 2 speed. So our speed's 3, so we basically have to reduce until our speed is 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so now our speed's 1, so we've done that. So now let's reach end of turn. So we'll check the difference here. 1, 2, 3, difference is 3. Our speed is 1, so luckily we get to increase momentum by 1. If we weren't able to do that, remember that if you end your turn with a speed of 1, you have to stress a card. We don't want to do that, but luckily we're out of the danger zone there. So our speed's back up to 2. We'll move the start cube this way. We don't have to adjust the map because we haven't passed any cards. We don't have to reset our line because we are not out of cards yet. So we're still in the running. Yeah. And our active cube is here. So let's do... a jump, right? We've seen this move, right or up to empty points, then 1 right or up. So the only thing we can do, we can't go 1, 2, 3 because we have to move at least 1 up. So when your speed's 2, there's really only one thing you can do, which is 1, 2, 3, right? And then we're doing the thing we've done before. Distance between active and inactive is 2. So our free fall is 2, and we resolve it. 1, 2, down 1. All right, right 2, down 1. That's that column. Move it left. Right 1, down 1. Left again. Right 1, down 2, but we stop prematurely. Unfortunately, this means we lose because we stop prematurely, so we have to take stress equal to our speed, which means we have to take 2 stress. Unfortunately, we have 3 cards already in our stress, so that would add 1, 2. That'd be 5 cards in our stress, and we immediately lose the game. That's unfortunate because we were really close. We were really close to making it. All we had to do is add 1 more card, which we would have done because we would have been over here. And then if we could just have made it 1 more space, then we would have had to add this last card, and that would have won the game because this is no longer a map card. So yeah, that is Concrete Jungle. I apologize for the length of this video. I apologize if I got rambly in any way. I hope this was useful. Please don't hesitate to comment if you have any suggestions or any more confusing rules that you'd like clarified. But I hope you enjoy the game. Cheers.